It's running, but I'm just going to refresh it and then hopefully that works. Oh yeah, it says upcoming. It's acting as if it's not live. So strange. Okay, I think we're just going to restart it because I don't know what's wrong with it. Truthfully, it's going to piss me off. I'm going to refresh this, and if that doesn't work, okay, I got the email from YouTube saying it's live. So, I don't know what. Okay, now I see y'all. Okay, so strange. Well, hopefully y'all heard all of that. If not, we'll go through agenda again, and we're going to go ahead and hop into it. Let me know if y'all can hear me and if it's working on your end. I don't know what's going on with YouTube or my Wi-Fi. It's either or. Okay, so first and foremost, shout out to the patrons. Okay, y'all can hear me? Okay, cool. I see all of the chat coming in now. Wonderful. So shout out to my patrons. I appreciate y'all. If you've missed anything from Instagram, all the Instagram lives are always uploaded to Patreon for all the tiers. So they're over there. And then we have some Patreon only live streams as well. So if you ever have suggestions for anything, I do a lot of polls on Instagram. So go ahead and follow me at Instagram at Wine and Chill. And a special shout out to Courtney, Edna, Judy, Juanita, and David. I appreciate y'all. All right. Oh, there was an ad. So strange. You know what? I was like, what's happening? It's not showing me that there's an ad. Usually, I'll just tell y'all for transparency, what used to happen is you enable the ads and then the ads run after the live stream. They've never run during the live stream. So I don't know if that's new, but that's very strange because on my end, it looked like nobody was in here. And I was like, what's happening? I saw y'all and I didn't see y'all. So if you're tuning into this, skip all of this and start at minute 5:16 because that's when we're going to get into it. All right. So let's start first and foremost with Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is the root of the issue. Also, I'm using my camera, so shout out to me for being technological somewhat. Sorry to remember to look over there. Wells Fargo is an interesting bank in that most of these banks obviously operate under capitalism. They do not give a damn about you. That's why they charge all these fees. However, Wells Fargo is exceptionally awful from a legal standpoint. And there are numerous lawsuits, fines from the FTC, private lawsuits, public lawsuits, class action lawsuits, about their discrimination practices, about allegedly stealing money, etc., etc., etc. I used to bank with Wells Fargo. I will state truthfully, nothing ever happened to my account. However, I did close the account because I don't want to bank with a bank that is notoriously, allegedly, since it's a legal channel, racist. Even though court documents have shown that, yes, the racism is very much alive and well. So let's start there. And the reason why we're starting with Wells Fargo as we get into Wendy Williams and her financial guardianship specifically, because Wells Fargo started the issue because that is who she banks with. So let me move me to the side. These are just a few of the various fines and lawsuits that have come under Wells Fargo in the past few years. So actually, let me make me small because y'all know I cannot see. All right, so this one from USA Today is from 2022. Wells Fargo, they are currently under investigation and a major class action lawsuit for discrimination in mortgage lending practices. And specifically, the allegations that Wells Fargo hates Black people ring very true because essentially they were charging Black homeowners and people that were at least trying to buy their first home that were Black higher interest rates, which is the allegation. And this was company-wide. Then going on to Forbes, the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, ordered Wells Fargo to pay $2 billion. This is at the end of 2022 in refunds to over 16 million affected customers, in addition to 1.7 billion in penalties. Wells Fargo illegally assessed fees and interest charges. Now, this is from the CFPB. This is an affirmative statement. This is not an allegation. On auto and mortgage loans, incorrectly repossess customers' cars. If you that's a nice way to say you stole somebody's thing. I incorrectly repossessed your vehicle. I do apologize. That's thieving. That's what it is. It's corporate thievery. Mismanaged payments to auto and mortgage loans, charged unlawful surprise overdraft fees, and applied other incorrect charges to checking and savings account, the agency said. One of the things that I learned on like my financial journey, because y'all know we do the student loan series once a month, so I'm very transparent with my finances. I believe in paid transparency, and we have to talk about it. So we'll probably do a video on how much I've made as a creator. It'll be 1 year next month, because I think that would be really interesting and helpful. And you know, it's not as much as people think, but hey, my bills have been paid. This expensive Wi-Fi that works on occasion, it is paid. And I recommend, if you don't do it every day, you don't have to do it every day, but at least every week, to check your bank statements, no matter who you bank with, and make sure they are not incorrectly assessing fees. When I had Bank of America, and the reason why I no longer have Bank of America, when I was in law school, my 1L year, there were at the time, I don't know if this has changed, no Bank of Americas in the state of Louisiana. So to withdraw money, you had to go to another bank and they charge you a fee, and it was just commotion. And it was very annoying and very upsetting. So the day before I got my financial aid refund check, I overdrafted my account from Bank of America, because I was poor and in law school, by 38 cents. I called Bank of America because they charged me $35. I was like, hey, I've had this since I was a teenager, since I got my first job. Is it okay if you waive the fee? I've never overdrafted the account. This is before I hit my 20s, when I did reckless things. I never overdrafted the account. Like, it's 38 cents. They were like, absolutely not. $35 to you. And I was like, you're charging me $35 when I only had 38 cents in the account. So I don't really have any money. What is the purpose of this? It was very mean-spirited. And a lot of these companies will usually waive your overdraft fee, or sometimes they will accidentally charge you an overdraft fee. That happened with me and Chase last week, where they charged me, I think it was like $17. It was like a random number. It wasn't the 35. I was like, what is this for? They're like, oh, we're sorry. And they reversed it, but they wouldn't have done that unless I went into my account, and I routinely go into my account every week. And I'm like, what is this? Did I buy this? Okay, fine. Because if it's not for me, I'm not paying for it. All right. And then this is from April 25th, 2023. So you see that these allegations from Wells Fargo are from multiple years. This 3.7 billion, I think, is related to the other 3.7 billion as well, but this is from April 25th, 2023. So it came up that other fines were then assessed. The bank has been ordered to pay fines and consumers redress for illegal conduct across several business lines. All right. So just so we say that, so the clip that should have played in the beginning of this video is this clip from Wendy Williams, where this is from last year, March 23rd. Oh, it's from my birthday. From last year, where Wendy Williams is essentially, and she's on her personal Instagram, stating, hey, I tried to log into my accounts. I've been frozen out of my accounts. And according to Wendy Williams and her original team, and according to her son, this stemmed because Wendy questioned her Wells Fargo financial advisor. So if you are a high net worth individual, you can become a private client. So she most likely, technically she still is, but she most likely at the time was a Wells Fargo private client. Chase private client is a whole separate business line where essentially you get what they term like a free financial advisor. They charge you for different things, but they're supposed to advise you, etc. She, according to Wendy, she asked her financial advisor, like, hey, I want to see my bank statements because something about this is very strange. To which she was then met with not only a cold shoulder from the financial advisor she'd been working with for years, all of a sudden, Wells Fargo froze her accounts, stating that she was mentally incapacitated and that somebody was taking advantage of her. And the first thing that came to mind in going through this was it should be a huge conflict of interest that Wells Fargo took the word of their own employee that something was wrong. It's not like somebody from Wendy's family said, hey, we've noticed something is wrong, etc. Wells Fargo employee, which we're going to get to her name in 2 seconds, stated, oh, you know what? I think the money is funny over there and we need to freeze the accounts. So this is Lori Schiller. Lori Schiller still works at Wells Fargo. Of course she does. According to the Wells Fargo website, it states, my commitment to you as a financial advisor with Wells Fargo Advisors, I can offer you a wide range of services from helping you to select individual investments to developing a retirement plan with access to a broad array of company resources, including research analysts and economic and market experts. I can help you make the informed investment decisions based on your specific needs. All under the guise of Wells Fargo, because that is who Lori's employer is, which this is very different. And depending on who you ask, different people are of different mindsets about financial advisors. If you're a high net worth individual, it can be helpful, of course, to have a financial advisor. However, lots of scammers seem to survive and thrive in that lane, I have noticed, which is very interesting. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to play some of Wendy's clip. 1 second. It's about 4 minutes long. So we won't play the whole thing. We'll play about half. So let me go ahead and we're going to change it. Okay, here we go. Can y'all see Wendy? Perfect.
That I've been asking questions about my money. And when I began asking questions about my money, suddenly Lori Schiller has got no response regarding my money. I want my money. This is not fair. And Wells Fargo has no questions and answers with regarding my money. This is not fair. And Lori Schiller and Wells Fargo have this guardianship petition about keeping me away from my money. This is not right. And you know this is not fair. And this guy named Bernie Young, I know for a fact that Bernie Young used my American Express card to hire an attorney to file a petition against me. That was done with my American Express card.
Okay, so we're going to pause it there. Yes, and we're going to get into the fact that her ex-manager used her American Express card to literally file a petition to get conservatorship over her. The audacity of a lot of the people involved in this is completely wild. And one of the things, I meant to put a slide about it and I didn't. There are a lot of people, to be honest, when you bring up Wendy Williams can be a controversial, polarizing person, because Wendy Williams most famously is built the largest talk show centered around celebrity gossip, celebrity news, etc. And a lot of people have been vexed by the questions Wendy Williams asked. Okay. But to disregard the fact that she's being taken advantage of, primarily because she's a woman, because she's a Black woman, doesn't really get into the nuance of, oh, well, you know what? She's awful. So this is fine that it's happening. The fact that it's happening to a very wealthy person, what do you think the odds are that this will happen to you? When you don't have the resources to fight back, when you don't have the resources to hire a lawyer to be like, hey, no, I don't know why my account is frozen. There's nothing wrong with me. Yeah, sometimes I say whatever. Maybe Wendy Williams does suffer from alcoholism. That doesn't mean she's incapacitated. So she doesn't deserve this. And I think it's very interesting when people just try to dismiss the larger legal issue in that conservatorship and legal guardianship in different states is called different things. In New York, which Wendy is technically her conservatorship, her legal guardianship is under New York, even though she lives in Jersey. I guess she does most of her business in New York. Maybe that was the logic behind it. Essentially, when that was filed, and if we're looking at the pattern of behavior that led to this, is very alarming that this occurred in about a week span. And this is during the same week where she's like, I just asked for my bank statement. What is the problem? All right. So let's continue. Oh, I gotta switch the thing. You know, I'm always team multiple things can be true at once. And I think with Wendy Williams, multiple things are true at once. The one truth is Wendy Williams is definitely a trailblazer. Wendy Williams made room for these blogs. Also, yeah, Wendy Williams has said some nefarious things. My forever favorite, may her soul rest in eternal peace. I did enjoy when Whitney Houston read her for filth and was like, get out of my business. Okay. And simultaneously, Wendy Williams is much, I would say, less problematic than these blogs. A lot of these blogs are not only spreading rampant misinformation, they are promoting right-wing politics. Specifically, the Shade Room has been called out multiple times in which they repost right-wing talking points. It's a problem. It's a problem when blogs that are allegedly supposed to be built for Black people are causing demise among Black people. So I think that part is interesting, but we're going to get back into the legal parts. So Financial guardianship and conservatorship is the same thing. You can use them interchangeably. Again, it just depends on the state. The interesting part that I highlighted here, so this is from NewYorkCourts.gov in the state of New York, which her financial guardianship is under New York, is specifically to obtain an Article 81 guardian, a person over the age of 18 or entity, which is alarming, must first file a case in court and prove that a guardian is necessary. The person or entity that files for the appointment of an Article 81 guardian is called a petitioner. Typically, the petitioner is the alleged incapacitated person's family member or a qualified agency. Now, a lot of the laws in the United States are antiquated. People very much, particularly, I would say this has gone on in the United States for many, many years. But with the rise of Donald Trump, people have very much gone back to very old Republican themes of law and order, law and order. Why did you run? Why did you do this? The law. If you are lawful and orderly, bad things won't happen to you. That's not true. That is not true. Systemic racism is not lawful nor orderly. I mean, it's lawful. It's not orderly. Just because something is codified into a law doesn't make it right. And it's very glaring and honestly a bit jarring to me to read through the law and see that an entity can claim legal guardianship over somebody. That shouldn't be right. Why should an entity? So for example, say if we were in an alternate universe and I'm like this huge YouTuber and I make YouTube all this money. And YouTube's like, you know what, Stephanie, you want to do like this colonization videos. We don't really like that. You know, we think you're losing your mind. You're drinking wine every video. I'm drinking water today, but let's say that. And YouTube filed for guardianship over me. That is inherently a conflict of interest. If your employer, because they're an entity, can file for guardianship over you, that is a mess. The fact that Wells Fargo was allowed to initiate this is a mess. Wells Fargo is not kin to Wendy Williams. Wells Fargo is simply her bank. Lori Schiller was simply her financial advisor. Lori Schiller's job was to say, hey, Wendy, you're allegedly worth around $20 million. Of the $20 million, you have X amount of millions in our bank. This is how we can make more money for you. Are you comfortable with these investments? You should do this. You want to buy a house? Okay, these are the best mortgage rates we can get you, etc. Not, oh, you know what? We want to control your money. And maybe because you're upset with us, you threaten to remove your money from Wells Fargo, which is likely what happened after she asked for her bank statements. They didn't give them to her. And Wells Fargo keeps a balance sheet. They don't want high net worth individuals leaving their bank. This is a mess. This is highly problematic. And I think the main thing that I always try to get across to people is just because something is a law doesn't make it right. As we see now, happy Pride. There are over 100 anti-LGBTQ plus and anti-gender affirming care bills on various states and local legislatures throughout the United States. Just because it's lawful doesn't make it right. It's wrong. It's wrong that in Nebraska, I'm like, it was an end state. It's Nebraska or North Dakota. I think it was Nebraska. In Nebraska, 2 months ago, their state legislature passed a law and said, you know what? Screw these poor kids. They don't deserve free lunch. That's their parents' fault that they're starving. That's crazy. That shouldn't be lawful that you're taking out the free lunch out of school. That is very much a minimal cost. And the kids need food so that way they can focus under the guise of personal responsibility. Personal responsibility for a 5-year-old is nonsense. They're 5. What sense does this make? All right, let us continue. So in a level of just honestly pure unadulterated foolery, the person who filed for guardianship first for Wendy was her ex-manager, Bernie Young, whom she fired. And he did this, mind you, after she fired him. And Bernie Young is the great young age of 75. At 75 years old, he got into his mind that he wanted to control Wendy Williams. And according to Wendy, used her American Express credit card to pay a lawyer to file a petition to therefore control her. That's one of the most crazy things I've heard, to be honest, in a long time. Just the pure audacity for someone to be like, you know what? In my age of 75, of course I can control this 56-year-old woman. What does she know? I know she fired me, but I know better than her. And there's an inherent level of sexism and misogyny throughout conservatorship laws. Unfortunately, and I think I would say it's somewhat, you know, the saying ignorance is bliss. that people purposely don't look into things because they don't want to know. There is no national registry, so no national data on conservatees, so people who are placed under conservatorships. However, anybody who pays attention or notices like pop culture news, mostly when we're talking about celebrities, it is mostly women put under conservatorships. Most famously, Britney Spears, Amanda Bynes, Wendy Williams now. We very rarely hear Nichelle Nichols, who was the star of Star Trek, one of the stars of Star Trek. We rarely hear about rich men, no matter what levels of foolery they do. Mel Gibson, wild amounts of foolery. Never threatened, I don't think, under conservatorship. I don't recall that. Oh, I was like, oh, I hear the door. It's Gabriel. Oh, I didn't lock the top lock. Hold on one second. I locked the top lock. Hold on. Sorry. Oh, we got a new lock system. I had to get him a key. I forgot. Anyways, you rarely see conservatorships being imposed on men. However, because there is no national registry, this is state by state, there is no national data to make that assertion. If the government and the federal government actually cared about whether or not conservatorship was inherently harmful to women, they would have a registry that simply required all the states to give a list of all their conservatees. It's not that complicated. It's not that hard. It would be very easy to collect that data. Yes, Kyrie, exactly. And ableism and conservatorship laws. And I think that should be noted just because it's the way the law is written, which the law functions under if someone is believed to be incapacitated. Just because you function differently than others in society doesn't mean you're inherently incapacitated. Wendy Williams is a good example. Wendy Williams has been very, I would say, very transparent about her battle with alcoholism. And just because she's an alcoholic, as she has admitted and has gone to various stints in rehab, etc., that doesn't mean she's incapacitated. That means that she needs people around her that will support her sobriety, that will help her, and not people that are encouraging her to act against her own detriment. Just because you technically can't do certain things doesn't mean that you need somebody else to control your life. Maybe somebody to assist you, but conservatorship is inherently, everything is dying. The camera's dying. Okay, let me switch it over before it just dies on me. And here I was. I had finally figured it out. I was like, oh, it looks great. Y'all are about to be really close. Hold on. Okay, let me fix this. See, the lighting is just not great on the... Okay, there we go. Hold on. Let me fix it. I'm so sad. See, all these technological issues. 1 second. Let me see if I wipe it, if it's better. The lighting is much better with the camera. Okay. All right. So let us continue. So it started with the ex-manager saying, hey, I want to be the guardian, to which Wells Fargo and the court were like, yeah, okay, sir, she fired you. Like, we can't get this preposterous. Then we have her newest manager. And I think what's really interesting about this angle is going to irritate the crap out of me. Okay, it's a little better. What's interesting then, she then got a new manager who was her former jeweler. So this is her manager. His name is Will. If you see on his Instagram, he's very much a very noted jeweler. I am not exactly sure what management skills, regardless of the fact that he does have in his bio Media Management LLC, what management skills he has. I'm not exactly sure, but he is very much an accomplished jeweler. To which the son, which we're going to specifically get into Kevin Jr. in a second, and his allegations in the son, to those allegations where the son was like, they're taking advantage of her. Why are they having Wendy do all this work? She needs to rest. She needs to go to rehab. She needs to recover. The arc of this, and the reason why Wendy became someone who was, to be honest, a target of a very predatory bank, is because she had a very public divorce from her husband. Unfortunately, we're not going to go get into that level of foolishness and shamelessness. She was pushed out of her show, which she built all these years, disgracefully just pushed her out of the show. They took all of her videos off of YouTube. They are now on YouTube under a different name. They're not under the Wendy Williams show. did all of these things, and her life essentially crumbled very publicly around her, to which all of these then vultures came into her life. All right. So in response to the son saying, hey, you're working my mom, like, what is the issue? Will's response was taking advantage of her for what? To get what? To do what? I'm not here to brag, but I was doing just okay before Wendy came along, and I insisted on helping her because she requested my assistance. Will Shelby is his last name. Selby is his last name. And this is such a wild response because the answer is simply money. Obviously, sir. Why would you respond in this manner? It's giving guilty. It's giving you know that you're bothering this lady. Were you worth $20 million before you became Whitney? I said Whitney because we're talking about Whitney. Before you came Wendy's manager? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. The jewelry is beautiful, but I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. And it's a bit preposterous for that to be the response. So, all right. This is from the Women's Media Center in terms of when we're looking at conservatorship and why conservatorship is not only an ableist issue, but also a women's issue. In that, y'all know I can't see this. Hold on, let me zoom in. So despite the changes in its definition, women have consistently been found to lack mental capacity simply by virtue of their sex. One of the main tenets of any type of guardianship or conservatorship is you have to show that the person doesn't have mental capacity. The arguing point of Wendy Williams' son, Kevin Jr., is, okay, my mom is unfortunately an alcoholic. She needs rehab. We are all agreed she should be in rehab. But how are you saying that she doesn't have mental capacity if y'all are having her do work? Y'all are having her do labor. So if she's doing all this labor, you can't have either or. It was the same arguments with Britney Spears, where the dad was like, no, I have to oversee her. Britney is unwell, but then having Britney do tours, you have to have very good memory to be able to do those dances, to be able to sing the songs, to do all these things, and was essentially working her and stealing all her money. And so with this, in the 19th century, women were diagnosed with mental illnesses like insanity and hysteria. Hysteria was a main illness, quote unquote, that they used to describe to women who were essentially very independent. So in some states, a husband could unilaterally commit his wife to an asylum. Diagnosis and commitment marked women as mentally incapable of managing their own lives and affairs, which justified their confinement by the patriarchal state, acting as both protector and oppressor. The same disability narrative was used in arguments opposing women's suffrage. Suffrage opponents claimed that women's lack of mental stability and their temperamental disabilities made them unfit for political participation. In any case, the argument went, women had their husbands to vote for them, to protect them, and supposedly act in their best interest. Child, we know how that goes. Once again, the state positioned itself as a women's protector and while functioning as their oppressor. And while it seems very preposterous that we would send a woman today to a mental asylum for being independent, for being like, hey, I'm going to build this media career, I'm going to do what I want to do. It was only in 1970 that women were allowed to have a bank account by themselves. It's not that far off. And it comes up all the time if you watch politics ever, particularly like when Hillary Clinton ran. Oh, women are too emotional. It was very funny to me that people were calling very stoic. She's full of issues. However, very stoic Hillary Clinton emotional, juxtaposed next to borderline, actually fully unhinged Donald Trump. Donald Trump, fully unhinged, no control of his emotions ever, and then Hillary Clinton is emotional. These stereotypes have essentially just lived on and repackaged themselves, and I would say affect Wendy Williams in the same manner, in that people are like, oh, she's loud, she's ridiculous. Look what she's wearing. People love to talk about what Wendy Williams is wearing in terms of her age. I mean, you should wear whatever you want at whatever age. What's the problem? And it's all to the fact to basically insist that like she's unwell, she needs help. But none of these people are people that have been around her for any amount of time. All right. So exploitation, contract law, and Kevin Jr. All right. So the reason why this is coming up again, this has been ongoing since last year, is Kevin Jr., who's Wendy Williams' only child, reached out and did an interview with the son. He has never, I believe, done an interview speaking about his mom. So this is the first time. And usually he very much has been quiet about this issue. And from reading the article, is very much coming from a place of utter, sadness, grief, desperation, and shock. of, hey, I've tried to do all these things. He's 22 years old. And I think the age should be noted as well. Because sometimes a lot of people are like, oh, why is he not taking care of his mother? He should do better, etc. To which, according to him, she did live with him in Florida for about a year, to where he was taking care of her, taking her to doctor's appointments. And for that, to be honest, I've had to learn to eat my humble pie in the past, still learning, in the past 6-ish months. Taking care of a parent is hard. This is a grown adult. This is a grown adult who's taking care of themselves. I've talked about, that my dad unfortunately had a trucking accident. And in the few weeks that I did go down to Miami and the back and forth, it is not so easy for you as a child to all of a sudden, as a grown child, to all of a sudden be like, okay, I'm in charge of this person. I'm going to do their best interest, etc., etc. This is a person with their own free will. It's a very tenuous situation. If you see what I'm saying. And some days it's great. And some days like, oh, argument is gonna occur. Commotion is about to happen. And I would say this, if adding into the factor with Kevin Jr. and Wendy Williams admittedly is I'm not recovering yet, hopefully on her way to recovery, an alcoholic. That is a lifetime battle. So to put somebody who's in the child position, even if they are an adult, 22 is really young, are an adult, to be like, yeah, you're all of a sudden going to tell this 57-year-old woman what to do at all times of the day. I can imagine how that went. I can see how possibly she was like, I'm fine. I'm going to go to New York, whatever. And how in maybe that lag of time, the vultures then crept in around her. So I do think, a little grace should be given to Kevin, because he's trying the best he can. And that's rough. From my brief trying to do it in the past, it's rough. It's not the easiest thing to do. Exactly. That taking care of parents is not for the weak. It's not for the weak. It's hard. It's very hard. And to do with grace and kindness and assertiveness, yeah, it takes some time. So I understand him being like, yo, I tried everything. I'm going to the tabloid. I'm going to go just say everything. So that way somebody who's more equipped can also help me help her. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So this is from the article. So Kevin expressed his concern about the people around Wendy presently who continue to profit off her. What's been made more important by the people around her is that while her health may not be great, she needs to keep on earning income. And in my opinion, that should not be a priority at all. And whoever has been hired, they are taking advantage of someone who needs to get better. Kevin said his mother's health had declined since she was living with him in Florida from late 2021 until spring of 2022. And again, it's back to this idea of Wendy needs rehab, and she needs healthcare, and she needs all of this assistance. She is also simultaneously, which maybe she initiated it, maybe she didn't. According to Kevin, he doesn't believe she initiated it, that she is now working on a project, an unscripted project that she does not classify as reality TV, but I would say generally could probably be classified as reality TV, and that he finds very alarming. Reality TV, the way reality TV shows are built is you have a camera in your face 24/7 to catch what you're doing 24/7. That is creating many levels of anxiety if you are already suffering from other issues, which she is. All right, let's make this a little bit bigger. Wendy spent nearly 3 months in Malibu. What are y'all doing over here? Let's not do that. Wendy spent nearly 3 months in a Malibu rehab from August to October 2022 for her alcoholism. And Kevin said he was told his mother signed contracts, so this is a growing legal issue, either during or immediately after her stay for working arrangements with her jeweler and manager Will. Again, I don't know what qualifications Will has to be managing her, to be honest. The same way her ex-husband, Kevin Sr., did not have any qualifications to be managing her. They had her in a position where she was agreeing to a lot that she shouldn't have. When I heard about that, that turned me off, Kevin said. In trying to attempt to know what everyone's intention is around her, at first I was like, okay, this is the team she wants to have around. But once I heard that she was agreeing to stuff around her rehab, I thought, well, okay, they are taking advantage. Okay, to which brings us to the law. So essentially, according to Kevin, that during her stay in rehab, they are either bringing legal documents to the rehab facility or right after she's exiting the rehab facility, aka while she's in a vulnerable state, which is textbook taking advantage of somebody. So according to law, you can invalidate contracts for various reasons, and one of them is undue influence. So essentially, her situation most likely would fall under undue influence, and it's state by state, the elements, but the general elements are vulnerability of the victim. If somebody is in need of rehabilitation services or has recently exited rehab, the first 30 days, I believe, when you leave rehab are the most vulnerable. You're extremely vulnerable. So check to that element. And the next, the influencer's authority. Will now is her manager. Everyone around her, she does have a court-appointed guardian. And that court-appointed guardian is a professional guardian. I'm very curious about people who enter into as their livelihood as professional conservators and professional guardians. It's a very... Because the field, if we're going to call it that, itself is so rife with issues and is so easy to exploit somebody, I'm not exactly sure I inherently trust the judgment of anybody that's like, yeah, I'm a professional conservator. I professionally just step into strangers' lives to tell them what to do with their money. That seems a little bit strange. That seems a little bit strange to me. So there clearly is lots of authority, because the way, if you're in a financial conservatorship or financial guardianship, which is the term in New York, the way it would work is if Will, her manager, came to her with a deal and was like, hey, we're going to do this reality show, he would also have to show it to the guardian as well. The guardian is incentivized for Wendy to make money because the guardian is being paid by Wendy, even though Wendy doesn't want the guardian. The same way with Britney Spears, which is perverse. The entire construct of conservatorship and guardianship at its base level is perverse. Yes, there are certain people that need help. However, as we read with the New York court, the way the definition is, says it's usually a family member. Usually a family member, because the intention originally was, okay, you know, a family member would look at you and be like, hey, I see you every day. You're not okay. Do you want me to help you? You would ask your permission and then step in. When it's somebody you don't know from Bob, Eve, or Adam, it's a problem. It's inherently a problem. Overt tactics, which further in the article, Kevin explained that everyone around her knows that she suffers from alcoholism, and yet they are taking her out, they're applying her with alcohol, etc. And to which her team responded was like, well, we're letting her celebrate. It's like, well, if you know that somebody has a problem, why would you feed their problem if the problem is just going to make their life worse? And then, oh, it's my grandma. And then the last would be inequitable results. I would be very curious, which we're probably never going to see them unless Kevin Jr. gets his hand on them. I would be very curious, these contracts that Wendy signed, what it says in terms of how much money is her manager getting? How much money is Wendy getting? Because if there's an unequal balance, that all of a sudden the manager is getting 40%, it's very clear that maybe the contract should be voided. All right. And this is the project that she allegedly is working on. At the end of 2022, Kevin claimed, and this is Kevin Jr., by the way, not her trifling ex-husband, claimed Will asked him if he wanted to be a part of the unscripted project Wendy had been spotted filming in recent months. The jeweler, Kevin Jr. refers to the new manager as the jeweler because by all intents and purposes of how he portrays himself online, he's very much a jeweler. The jeweler reached out to me last year, and he basically said, we are planning on this project being a way that would tell the public about what's happening, and I was opposed to it. I felt like, and I still feel like, she shouldn't be doing anything that involves putting herself in front of the camera. It goes back to putting work first and herself second. I was then reapproached by the producers, not by Wendy directly, a second time, and I just said no. I think these statements clearly show that the son is trying and that he cares, and that it is irrelevant the fact that, yes, his mother paid his rent. I mean, she's a rich lady. She has lots of money. If that's their arrangement, so be it. What that doesn't take away from the fact that he clearly is at this point at a loss on how to help his mom. at a loss on like, hey, there are these people around her who claim to be doing these things for her, but I'm seeing her Instagram, her this, her that, and she doesn't look well. She looked better when I was taking care of her, etc. And I just checked before we started this live that her manager has recently stated now that she is in a rehab facility and that she's trying her best to, get better, etc., which I think is really interesting that she's saying that her camp is now saying this after Kevin Jr. was like, what are you doing with my mom? All right, so let's go through some comments. This is my question as well. Where is her sister? Confessions of a Jaded Optimist. Her sister, to my knowledge, is a lawyer, and I don't know. I don't know. I would assume and I would hope that she's probably helping Kevin behind the scenes as well. However, I do think in the article, if we're talking from a specific like legal sense, if your goal is to have someone get out of their conservatorship, get out of their financial guardianship, the goal is to say like, hey, they're of sound mind. Multiple times in the article, because I think this is his mom. He's frightened. He's frustrated. Was like, hey, sometimes she's fine and sometimes she's not. That likely is giving the financial guardian fuel to go to court and be like, see, she's not that well. She needs this. We need to control her money, etc., etc. So I'd be curious to know if he spoke with his aunt beforehand and was like, hey, can you look over this from a legal standpoint of what I should admit and what I should not? And, of course, I think there are so many lines blurred, which there are allegations that maybe he also had access to her account. But again, like, this is his mom. This is a very different thing than the stranger, than her ex-manager using her Amex card after being fired to hire a lawyer to petition for guardianship over her. So, exactly. I agree. That is her only child. Even if she was in her right mind, she would be doing that as well. Exactly. And I think a lot of people, because most of us, either our parents can't afford it or, some people don't have that type of, I would say, like financial backing from their parents. Whenever they see somebody with that type of financial backing, like, oh, well, you're lazy. You shouldn't be getting that. And it's like, well, actually, if you have it, you should give it to your kids. So why do you want them to have rough life too? What's the purpose of that? There's no point to also perpetuate rough life for your kids. It's unnecessary. So it makes sense to me. I think she paid $100,000, must be a really nice apartment, for the year for his apartment in Miami, to which the conservator then ended his lease, unbeknownst to him, and had him evicted, even though, according to Kevin Jr., it was prepaid. That is illegal. And that is wrong, because she is free to do with her money what she wants to do with her money. And what is $100,000 to somebody that is worth $20 million? It's not making sense. It's not making sense. All right, so I think that was the end of it. So we're going to keep monitoring this. I'm hoping, to be honest, that she gets rehab and that she gets a sensible judge, because some of these judges, I don't know. The sense is not there, because again, why was Wells Fargo, again, has been petitioning over and over, like, no, she's incapacitated. No, because there's language in the Wells Fargo contract that says if you are incapacitated, they can stop transactions on your account. However, this was not spurred by a transaction. This was spurred by her saying, I just want to see my bank statements. It's not as if she tried to buy a jet and was like, yeah, I'm worth 20 million. I'm spending 20 million on this jet. She didn't do any of that. She simply wanted access to see who was messing with her money. And the fact that Wells Fargo denied her that, and based on their past bad behavior, would lead me to believe they are probably also messing with her money. So let's go to the comments. Exactly, child, exactly this. Listen, Bernie should be spending his last year in jail for using Amex. That was fraud. It was fraud. It's so many things have occurred, and none of these people have had any accountability for it, and no repercussions, no consequences. Oh, I'll make sure to watch that. Thank you, Rachel. By the way, Thursday, Brittany has a court hearing to set a trial for certain issues of her conservatorship. I will watch out for that, because we've covered that a few times as well. This is a good question. Is he trying to get out of her conservatorship or take over it? I'm not sure. And to be honest, because she's only under financial guardianship, she's free to do whatever she wants. So there's two different kinds. There's the one Britney Spears had, where Britney Spears was all encompassing. It was financial as well as in the person. As like, you know what? You need someone to do your day-to-day schedule because we don't trust you to do anything. Hers is just financial. He's 22. I wouldn't say he has the best financial sense at 22, but he could help, at least be like, hey mom, let's do this, etc. And again, none of the courts, which her case is currently sealed, unfortunately, so you can't see anything. I'm not a fan of sealing court cases, to be honest, unless it's children, because it then hides wrongdoing, which is why Britney Spears' conservatorship lasted so long, because they sealed her father petitioned every time to seal the records. When you seal records, you don't know what's going on. It hasn't been alleged by anyone that Wendy has some crazy spending problem, that she's out here trying to buy, 10 Maseratis or anything like that. So it really doesn't make any sense for her to have a conservatorship. She needs rehab, she needs help, but she doesn't necessarily need anybody, running her money. And I feel like her ex-husband would argue differently, because he has no money now because he's been leeching off of her for all these years. And, to hell with him, child. Yes, all of the rich children who are very overgrown that I know, their parents are paying their rent. It is a very normal practice for people who have obnoxious amounts of money. Child, I don't know what's wrong with this person. All right. Sharice, I took care of my grandma at the tender age of 22. Ooh, shout out to you. It was so rough. Great experience, but wouldn't wish that on anyone. It's hard. And it's also heartbreaking as the younger caretaker, because you're trying and you're not used to seeing your older parent or family member in that state. And you're like, oh, okay. So you're trying to help, but you're also heartbroken at the fact that they are in a state where they need help. And it's just a lot. It's just a lot. Okay, so let's go towards the middle. Blue quartz, the fact that a bank can just be like, nah, none of your capital letters money for you. And that's the problem. Why is that allowed? Why is that a law? Why have we allowed this? And banks have more money to hire lobbyists, etc., etc. But these are things that the people we pay, aka the politicians whose salary we pay, their actual salary, they need to be fixing, because that's preposterous. That's crazy. That doesn't make any sense to me, that a bank, that is an entity there is no one person running the bank. It is a corporation. Can just be like, oh yeah, I'm just not giving you your money. You could starve. And the reason why this became a bigger issue is because Wendy and her team basically spoke out. Wendy spoke out and was like, hey, I can't pay my bills because they froze all of her accounts. That should be unlawful. Unless you have committed certain unforgivable crimes and you are going to, I'm like, what can I say? I was gonna say, I'm like, certain things need to get overthrown. But anyways, certain things, you shouldn't be having your account frozen. That's craziness. That's utter foolishness and nonsense. All right. Okay. They probably have their pocket lawyers that they have to go to. True. I remember that. Oh gosh, I remember that. Listen, she's lived a life. She's definitely lived a life. Well, on that note, I don't know how I accidentally deleted our little sip thing. I'm trying to think what's coming up. So I'm gonna film it tomorrow, so it'll come out next week. The legalities of reality TV. Thought that would be interesting. So we're going to go through the contracts. Why are you allowed to assault someone on reality television and not have any consequences? We're going to do a recorded video on that. We're going to do some student loan updates. You know what? Joe is no good. And I kept trying to tell y'all this. And most people saw that Joe was not going to do his job. We are getting pushed back into repayment. It is likely happening in September. Student loan forbearance is for sure ending August 30th. And the reason why we don't have a repayment date, because the end of forbearance doesn't necessarily mean the beginning of repayment. And the reason for that is because most of the student loan service providers during the pandemic, they said they ran out of money after they teefed all of our money, and they fired large amounts of their employees. So they likely cannot begin the process of having us repay by September. So we'll see. So we're going to talk about that. I'm so annoyed. And then we're still waiting on the Supreme Court about whether or not student loan forgiveness is passing. I'm not hopeful, to be honest, but I'm rooting for y'all. For y'all who qualify, I am rooting for y'all. So we're going to do that. And then, on Instagram, we did some votes. We'll try something new. I thought we'd do a little finance content that's a little fun about Sex in the City. And then just like that. So we're going to do that as well. Like how y'all ran out of money after I personally have been giving y'all this money. I don't believe them. They're just cheap. They're just cheap. So they laid people off, y'all. That's it. But yeah, so those are all the things that will be coming up next week. And if you have any suggestions, let me know. Also, if you just tuned in, just start from minute 5. I don't know what happened probably was my Wi-Fi again. Who knows? But yeah, yes, I agree. Joe is no good, but unfortunately next to him is a straight up fascist. So it looks like the lesser of two evils all over again. And I hate that for us. I really do. So yeah. On that note, on a happier note, I was gonna say something happy and I'm like, oh, the air quality outside is bad. It's commotion, but happy Pride on a happy note. Happy Pride. Hopefully the air in New York will get better and the world will stop burning down. Ciao. We'll see. We did the writer's strike on Instagram a month ago, I think, when it first started. So it's on Patreon. We did like a whole deep dive. I'll probably do an updated one because SAG-AFTRA, which is the Actors Guild, so the Actors Union, they have voted to strike if they don't get a deal with the studios signed by June 30th. So if they strike, it's going to make it much more pressure on the studios to actually pay people a living wage, which I'll be really glad about. So we'll see. I'm hoping they do, because that's the only way to push them. The Directors Guild copped out, and the Directors Guild signed their own deal and said to hell with everyone else. Trifling. No solidarity with the Directors Guild, of course. Very much giving middle-class behavior. But on that note, I will catch y'all next week. All right. Have a good night. Bye.